I'll now hand over to Adam, and he's going to talk about user experience from a design perspective and everything like that. So I'll let him get.
As Rob said, I do something called UX. Probably some of you have heard the phrase before, the term, but it basically means that what I do is take what I think are pretty bad experiences and hopefully make them pretty good. Now, UX as a term has been around for a while now. It's fairly misunderstood by quite a few people, and it's often misused a lot of the time as well. So the problem I have a lot of the time is kind of selling the value and actually making people understand what it is that I do properly, you know, so they don't kind of turn around and think that it's some kind of wanky term that doesn't really mean anything, of which it often kind of comes across. But I split UX into, I guess, three kind of core areas. Now, a lot of the stuff that Paul talked about, personalisation, is massively important, and actually it's kind of bred through a lot of the work that I do. The first and foremost, most important thing is usability. So this pretty much is just, can I get the job done? As a user, can I just at least complete the task? I've kind of come to the website, or come to the app, or come to the product to complete. Once you've got that nailed, you can kind of move on to two other areas, which is stuff like enjoyment. So not only did I make it, and not only did I kind of complete the task, but actually it's pretty enjoyable to do it at the same time. Actually, this is pretty fun. So this is all about, you know, kind of stripping away the obstacles, making it a seamless process, and this is about adding the kind of enjoyment and the engagement factor into that as well. And then lastly, there's the whole kind of empowerment area of stuff as well. So this is about how you actually kind of make someone's life better, if you like. So if you look at companies like Airbnb, who've kind of added that factor of changing the way that someone actually behaves and the way that they actually kind of go about their lives is a big part of that. So in a really simple kind of framework, those are the three key areas. It's as simple as 8 words on a page of paper. So you've probably all seen the Oscars mix-up. So basically, in this year's Oscars, the best picture was awarded to La La Land instead of Moonlight. So at the top here is the card that Faye and I can't remember the gentleman's name were given. Actually, it was the wrong card. They were given the card for Best Actress. So when they came to announce it, they said La La Land, and obviously that's where all the issues kind of came about. But below, we've got a slight rework of the exact same content, just slightly better orientated and organised. So clearly the hierarchy, you wouldn't have announced Best Picture if you can see clearly Best Actress at the top there. So it kind of the common usability. So that's as simple as UX can really be. It's a card of paper with 8 words, or it's as complex as turning anyone who can have a smartwatch and a spare room in their house into a hotelier from their own wrist. So there's a massive spectrum of movement between the simplest form of UX and the most complex form of it. But I've always struggled with getting across the value in what I do. So I'm kind of often met with quotes from people. This is me staring at my stack of pennies that I've been given for my budget allocation. So I've kind of, for the last 5-6 years, I've always had the allocation. You know, if you've only got time on this project, if we can find budget for you. I'm the kind of nice to have, if you like. I'm the add-on, the optional extra at the end of a project. I get quotes like, "Sorry, but we just don't have the budget for you." The client has decided we don't need it. You don't need it? Okay, fine, all right, I'm not going to argue. We just need to focus on getting it built. These are the kind of key phrases, key quotes that I'm met with all the time. So the main thing that these quotes, I think, denote and actually showcase is that the mindset behind the people saying them show that they already think that they're at a level playing field. Their benchmark is already set. They're already doing a good job. So Paul's already mentioned quite a lot about that kind of revenue, the increase in conversion. The people that have said this to me think that they've already got a decent product, or actually the redesign is going to be better. But what if it isn't? What if your product isn't good? What if it's actually having a negative effect on your business, losing you money? I mean, the chances are that your website or product is losing you a lot of money all the time. That's kind of what I've seen, that's what I've always come across. If your yearly revenue, if say, for example, you're an e-commerce website, your yearly revenue is £1 million. You've got no reference to whether that's good or bad, but actually, what if the industry standard or the kind of saturation point in your market was 2 million? You're physically losing the potential revenue of the £1 million every year. So you have a cost. That's a cost associated to your negative work or your negative experience by the website. So for me, good UX isn't always about making extra money. It's about recouping lost revenue. So that's how I've had to try and shift things and tailor how I talk to clients and potential business owners about the work that I do and how I can start to impact on their business. Has anyone seen or recognise this guy? He's a lovely looking chap.
Good angle.
In a great shirt and tie combination. He's a guy called Jacob Nielsen. So he's basically, for kind of the late 90s, early 2000s, pioneered the subject of web usability. So he's basically written books on how you make user experiences that much better, that much more intuitive. And he said famously that online, for every £1 made, there was also £1 lost. So when you try and kind of quantify that, it becomes almost mind-boggling in the figures that you get to. But he said for every £1 made, £1 was lost. So clearly, there's a massive gap between what you could make and what you are making. Did anyone read the BBC article this quite recently about train ticket purchasing and about the pain of buying a ticket, mainly from ticket stations? But essentially, the figure is 1/5 of all passengers buy the wrong ticket, right?
I actually asked the guard on the way here exactly that. Have I got the right ticket?
I mean, it's mental. The experiences from ticket machines is atrocious. It's so difficult to buy the right ticket, and clearly it shows. Now, frustratingly, I can't get my screen to work here, and the majority of the time that I spent writing this presentation was actually doing the maths for this exact quote to work out the lost revenue. Anyway, it's about 1.65 billion people every year buy or travel on the train. It's about 4.5 million a day. Now, when you get down to kind of 20%, so you're looking at kind of 450,000 buy the wrong ticket, half of that 225,000. So 225,000 buy the wrong ticket at an undervalued price. So they're paying less than they should do. Now, when you look at the average ticket price of about £150, and you say maybe they underpaid by about 15%, so every day that's £3.4 million less than they should be taking. Right? I mean, that's like crazy. A year, £1.2 billion. And when you start to do the maths on some of these problems and the effect of bad UX, bad usability, I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, so that article was pretty interesting to read. So I don't talk necessarily about the value of UX. I talk about the cost of not doing it properly or not doing it at all. So over the last kind of, I guess, 1, 2, 3 years, I've been trying to perfect the services and the approach that I take on projects. I often have to work quite nimbly on nimbly word, to kind of fit in with client budgets where they're slightly smaller, slightly kind of quicker projects that I work on. So I've been developing a kind of a toolkit of UX techniques that allow us to get the job done a little bit quicker. I think a lot of you have heard of things like user testing, presumably, test your users in front of the site. We don't always have time and budget and resources to do that. It takes a lab, it takes resources, it takes a lot of effort. So I've been working on something called user stories. Is everyone familiar with that term? Heard that before? So I have a big problem with this standard persona approach to UX. So you've probably all heard of personas before. If you're in marketing, you've definitely heard of them. Now this is a standard persona that you could probably find online. It's a kind of standard template. Now, in terms of the orientation and the hierarchy of content, it all focuses on the demographic and even the name of the person. Now, this is entirely the wrong approach to take when you're looking at design and experience. Because who gives a crap if he's an extrovert versus an introvert, or how he's thinking and feeling, or his kind of, what he does in his spare time, whether he's friendly or clever. I mean, that doesn't do anything to the job that I have to do, which is to design a product that works for him. So the way that you carve it is not to focus on the persona itself, but actually focus on the story or the context or the scenario that this person is coming to your website or product to complete. So the first thing that you need to do is always start with your audience. Is it me, or did the lights just kind of go down a little bit? I'm not about to faint. Okay, so the first thing you need to work out, and this works really well if you can grab a bunch of stakeholders. If you've got a few people in your team, you can grab a room and start to look at brainstorming process. But really think in detail about the types of people that are using your product, service, or business. It's really, really simple. It's really quick. But the main thing is to segment them by their interest or need they have with your business. Don't call them anyone. Don't try and assign their demographic. Don't look at their age. Don't look at where they live. Just think about their interest or need they have with you and your business. What are they coming to your business to do? What's their motivation to be there? For those kind of segments, start to look at maybe some anecdotal profiles. These are a really quick snapshot of the person. So you can start to think a little bit more about who they might be, but don't focus too heavily on that. And then you're looking at defining a range of tasks that they may want to complete. So you've got a segment of a potential type of person that's interested in working with you, and a bunch of tasks that you think they're going to want to do with you when they arrive at the website or products that you have on offer. Then following that, you want to start to combine those tasks until you have kind of several, main groups of tasks that you can start to have as groups. You're looking for maybe 3 or 4 of those kind of key task groups. And then we do is you take one of those groups and you set a scenario or context for the user. So this really is where the story starts. So you're looking at a segment, a bunch of tasks, and then looking at a scenario per task that you've got. It sounds really convoluted and complex on there. I swear it sounded simpler in my head earlier. But anyway, this is some work that I've done recently for a big rail company. Now, this hopefully gets the point across a little bit easier. So these are 4 user stories. Now, the main target audience or user groups are people that are kind of line-side neighbours, people who may be part of a community, who have got an issue with the railway product going underway. You've got a tree at the back of the house that sits on the railway that the railway isn't managing properly, and you want to kind of report some of those issues. So the first thing we did is look at 4 key kind of user stories. Reporting an incident was 1, resolving an issue was the 2nd, submitting a complaint was 3rd, and then sending an inquiry was 4th. So those are what we lead with. We're not leading with a name, a demographic, we're leading with the main reason, the main task and scenario that they're there to complete. We've got a quick user quote. So for example, for the person who's in the community that wants to report seeing an incident on the railway, I've witnessed a safety issue, including some damage to a boundary wall. I'd like to report it to the relevant person or department at the railway. So that really sets the scene for what you're doing and what your design process needs to start to look at. So in terms of persona stuff, we've only got a couple of examples down here of the typical personas we may have here, but a bit about user motivation and a bit about their kind of contact needs behind the business. But the main thing is that we haven't started with a demographic. We've looked at the reasons that someone will interact with us and their key stories behind starting that interaction. Does that all make sense? Yeah? Okay. Next, you need to start to think about 3 things. So it's the knowledge, the device, and the starting point. Now, when I say knowledge, what I mean is something called the knowledge gap. Now, has anyone come across the term knowledge gap before? Okay, so basically, the knowledge gap is the gap between where your user is in terms of their understanding and knowledge of you and your website, so how they think it works, how they know it works, versus actually where their knowledge needs to be to use it efficiently. So if you look at something like the Airbnb app, for example, a new user would have a massive knowledge gap because they've never used it before, and they don't know the features, they don't know how to make their way around it, they don't know how to search for a property, they don't know how to book a holiday. So knowing your kind of knowledge gap for each of your scenarios and your segments is really important, because your interface then starts to play around that. So it may be that some of the elements are a bit more descriptive, a bit more friendly and informative around where you go and how you guide a user through that interface. So that's the first thing you need to do. The second is pretty standard and pretty straightforward. Think about the device they're using. Is it a smartphone? Is it a tablet? Is it a desktop? Maybe it's a wearable device. And then lastly, you're looking at their starting point. So where are they likely to start with you? Has it come from a Google search? Is it a referral? Is it a benchmark? A bookmark even, sorry. And what might that kind of search term look like? So you've got a snapshot of the segment that you're targeting, a kind of typical scenario or story that they'll arrive at your business or your website with, and a bunch of information around their knowledge, their device, and their starting point. So you can start to think about how that journey looks for that user. So for example, in our report and incident story, we've got a low knowledge here. It's the first time they've contacted the railway, so they've got a large knowledge gap. They're a tablet user, and they enter via the contact page because their Google search was to report an issue on the railway, so they've been met straight away with that content page. So you can see kind of who they are and a bit of a snapshot around the kind of typical device, knowledge, and access point. And lastly, what I've been doing recently with a lot of these user stories is splitting the experience into 3 areas. So you've got a before, a during, and an after. So this is how most experiences are built together and hang together. So you're you're looking to walk the journey from the starting point. So when you talk about a, just get all these up now. This is all these, yeah. So basically you're looking to walk the journey from the starting point where they enter the site. So your entry point may be the contact page like we said just now, but actually the design job we have is the contact form. So actually that first bit, that section before they come to that contact form is how they find it, how they navigate the contact page, how maybe they've entered the home page, how they find it, how they go to that contact form page. What does it look like during the process as well, so how they move through that contact form, and then actually afterwards. So the experience doesn't stop when the user leaves the interface. Advocacy and retention is something that Paul talked a lot about. How do you follow up on that? What does your email process look like? What's your confirmation process? How do you get them back? How do you manage that kind of ongoing interaction? And then what you want to do is start to think about what's wrong with the journey and how you might improve it. So you've basically done a kind of a walking user journey test yourself. You've walked through from the starting point through that process and then looked at the experience afterwards as well. So when you look at something like the experience for one of our community members, we've got a bunch of pain points all across that journey, from before I get to the form, during the form completion, and after the form. And off the back of those issues, we've got a load of ideas that we can start to play with and start to develop and start to grow with in terms of strategy. And that's it, really. That's it.
Thank you, Adam. I'd just like to say that any of the quotes that he had at the start, it's never come from any of us.
All of them did.
We're going to take a short break, 15 minutes, for some canapes and some food outside, and then we'll come back in here, and there's a couple of presentations from Sitecore.